News Channel 5 network, this is MorningLine with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Barris here on a Monday, the official observance today of Veterans Day. We're going to be doing a Veterans Day program this morning, and I invite you to join in the conversation. Obviously, this time yesterday, and of course again today, take a moment to remember the veterans and their service to this country, but also how much is out there that may be available to help our veterans, and they're not aware of it, or they're not sure how to go about applying for it. There is a lot of money that can be, I think, gained if you know how to apply for it and where to go. We're going to get into that and other veteran services that are available out there with our guests this morning. We're going to open up the phone lines and invite you to join in the conversation. But this is an important show on a lot of levels. If you're not a veteran yourself, you may know someone who is. And I'll tell you what, just like my family, my wife's side of the family, we discovered there's a benefit available for my brother-in-law that he was not aware of. So the number 737-7587 if you'd like to join in the conversation. We're going to talk this morning with what I believe, based on who I've talked to, is one of the foremost experts on this type of thing, these types of services available to veterans here in the state, and that's Terry Wilson. You're out of Robertson County, and you're a Veteran Services Officer.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Well, and you're a humble guy, I know, but I have heard that you are one of the best, and I really appreciate you coming on this morning.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Like I said, my name's Terry Wilson, and I am the Veteran Service Officer in Robertson County. I am also the current Department Service Officer for the American Legion of the state of Tennessee. I'm accredited with the Tennessee Department of Veteran Services, the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, and the Marine Corps League.
So, in the state of Tennessee, how many veterans can you help? How many are here? Do you have an estimate on that?
We have, remember the number on
approximate. It could be approximate.
We have probably close to about 100,000 veterans probably in the state of Tennessee.
Okay.
We have 5,100 veterans in Robertson County. We have about 14,000 in Sumner County. In Cheatham County, we have about 3,800 veterans, and of course those numbers are growing.
Yep.
Middle Tennessee, the VA determined about a year to 2 years ago that Middle Tennessee is going to be the largest growing veteran population base potentially in the country.
Why is that? How is that so?
I think part of it is because of no income tax. Our cost of living is a little bit lower.
So veterans moving here, they choose to come here.
And not only that, but the veterans that are leaving Fort Campbell as they're retiring are choosing to stay here. We have veterans who may at one time have served at Fort Campbell are coming back to the area because they really like Tennessee and what they have. You can live in a rural area like Cheatham County or Robertson County and still take in everything that Nashville has to offer. So we have a lot of great advantages and stuff here in Middle Tennessee, and I think that's a big draw to a lot of our veterans. And so it's always great to see them here. I've talked to folks who were relocating from Alaska back to Wilson County. About 2 years ago, had a veteran and his family that contacted me, was coming back from Alaska. They called me 4 weeks before they left there. We set up an appointment, and so they stopped at our office on the way through to their home.
Now, you've actually helped veterans who come back to the state of Tennessee or that live in Tennessee that are outside of Robertson County.
We do. It's not a big thing for us because we try to concentrate on our veterans that are within Robertson County.
Every county has someone like you.
In about 90 out of the 95 counties in Tennessee, we do have county service officers. The county service officers, the amount of time that they work will depend on the resources that the county has to be able to put into it. I know there's some counties that it may only be 1 or 2 days a week. Some are 3 days a week, 24 hours. They need to work at least 20 hours a week because they have to have 1,000 hours a year to be able to maintain their accreditation.
Okay, well, so, all I know is you guys are very, very busy. Now, I want to say something about what in Robertson County. One reason I wanted to have you on the show today is obviously for the observance of Veterans Day, but also to talk about the monies that are available, how much it is. Now, little old Robertson County, Springfield, I think that's where your office is, right?
We're in Greenbrier.
In Greenbrier, I'm sorry, okay. And okay, since you've been there, or from 2006 to 2016, the amount of money brought into that county has grown to the point now where veterans benefits to those who live in Robertson County is the total about $26 million a year?
Well, we're the 2016 numbers that we received from the VA is that we're at $28 million.
$28 million a year coming into veterans in that county.
In Robertson County, yes. If we factor in the medical costs that are actually get added on top of that, that bumps that number up to $46 million.
Wow.
That is actually benefiting Robertson County. And this is money that can benefit all the counties as a whole. And so it is very important for the counties to really back their county service officers, to give them some support. They also need to support not just from the county executives and the county commissioners, but they also need it from their veterans organizations within their communities. Without the veterans organizations within the community supporting that veteran service office, it's really kind of a tough struggle for them. One of the things that we get into is if we have a veteran who calls us and they tell me, Terry, you know, I can't make my utility bill this month. I'm about to, you know, they're going to cut my power off. I pick up the phone, I call the American Legion, I call our local VFW, and typically their response is what do we need to do, how soon, and let us know how much.
Right.
It doesn't matter who the veteran is, when they served. The main thing is we need to take care of our ultimate mission, which is taking care of the veterans out here and their family.
And you can do that quickly. You can mobilize it quickly because you're talking about someone about to have their power turned off or something like that. You can get them help fast.
Yes. And we have resources within us, and then we look at the immediate need, and then we start looking at long term. So then we start looking at, are they receiving their VA compensation? Were there injuries they sustained in service that they need to consider filing a compensation claim form to be able to get those benefits?
How many veterans would you say, I'm not asking for a specific number, but are there a lot of veterans out there that may be able to qualify for this that are not aware of it or have not tried?
Oh yes, I believe there's a lot of veterans. What a lot of the veterans used to think is, you know, I came back, all my pieces and parts are here, I'm good. I'm going to leave it for the next guy. But for every veteran who ever raised his right hand and said, so help me God, that I'm going to protect the Constitution and defend the country, they earned that right to be able, if they suffered an injury in service, they need to see about if there's compensation for that injury. The VA's never going to compensate them for everything they were ever willing to do or able to do. But if we can help the quality of life or be able to make a little bit of change for them, then that's a big thing. I've had folks that have gotten so excited over just receiving $134 a month that if that changes quality of life for them, then that's a win for me.
Yep.
That's a win, and that's something we need to be doing. Just being able to get VA health care for a veteran, that's a big win because that can help them out tremendously, and those are the things that we're looking at. For wartime veterans, there is a program in place for non-service connected pension. It's based on income, based on need, and based on their assets. So those are the things it's based on. Now, not only is that open for the veteran, but that is also available to the spouse, the surviving spouse of the veteran. A lot of them don't realize that. They lower the income threshold down on the spouse, but still there's a lot of benefits that are there for the veteran and families.
And I know there's benefits there in general for veterans to a certain level. Now, you mentioned wartime, and I want to know if you can kind of qualify that for me. For instance, be it the Vietnam War or the Korean War. There was a window there where it's considered if you served, you were in wartime, which I think opens you up to the potential for maybe qualifying for more benefits, even though the conflict may have continued. But outside of those dates, it's not the same, correct?
Right. If it's wartime, take Vietnam for example. If I remember right, it's August 1964 is when it starts counting for wartime for them up through May of 1975. Now, if I have a veteran who was actually boots on ground before 1964, mid-62 through that time period in 64, I have to actually be able to show that he was boots on ground for him to count as wartime.
Same thing with Korea?
Korea, as long as they actually served during that time frame, they did not have to be boots on ground in Korea.
But if they're not inside, there was a date, and I don't know if you know that off the top of your head, between the Korean War beginning and the Korean War ending, and if you're not in wartime but you still served, then does that limit what you can apply for?
Yes.
Okay.
From the end of the Korean War up until the beginning of the Vietnam, that is considered peacetime.
All right.
And then after May of 1975 up through August of 1990, that is considered peacetime as well. Even though there's a lot of conflicts and things going on at that time, that is still considered peacetime. One of the things that the American Legion has done this year at the National Convention was to draft a resolution to send to Congress for them to go back and recognize the time period from December 7, 1941 up through a date to be determined by Congress as for the end of the activities at this point in time, to include those peacetime years because of the Cold War that was going on and the other conflicts, the many other conflicts that we actually had troops involved in, and we actually had a lot of deaths that occurred at that time.
Okay.
So we want to, the American Legion is trying to take that stand and start proceeding that through Congress. It's going to take years for this to happen, but it's something that the American Legion felt very heartfelt about being able to do, so we can include those into that wartime service as well.
All right, and you know, one thing you talked about is looking at immediate services for some of these veterans, depending on their age. As many of them start aging, especially if they end up suffering from some of the consequences of exposures to things maybe while they serve, money starts getting tight. They're on a fixed income. They don't know about their what benefits perhaps. They need maybe more nursing care or assisted living, and they're wondering how they're going to pay for it. Oftentimes that's when a veteran will maybe decide to look into some benefits they hadn't sought before. For instance, and this is something that my family on my wife's side has looked into, her brother-in-law being exposed to Agent Orange. And they were not aware of a potential benefit that was there for him because of that exposure. Now he's at a point where he may need extra help. A little extra money sure as heck would help. So what about that? The later in life, maybe that's when they come around to say, hey, what else might be there?
Yes, we do have, there are presumptives for the Vietnam vets. Agent Orange was a very troublesome chemical that we used during that time period, and we're still suffering from the effects of that. And I think a lot of our veterans are even getting into their 70s before they start seeing the effects from the Agent Orange exposure.
That's right.
Some of the key things that we're looking at on that as I'm talking with them is finding out if they have diabetes. Diabetes is one of the presumptives, ischemic heart disease. So if I have a veteran who's had a heart attack, bypass surgery, things of that nature there, then we definitely be looking at the presumptive under that. What presumptive means is that the VA concedes and says all we have to do is, the burden of proof on us is showing, one, that we do have a diagnosis of the condition, and the other thing is that we were actually boots on ground. Once we have that, then the VA will grant us a presumption of that basically it was a 50 to 51% probability that the veteran was exposed, and this is what caused it.
And that can result in, we got to take a break, but that can result then in a benefit of a few $100 a month?
Yes.
What's the range of that?
It could be anywhere from $134 a month to $2,900 a month for the veteran.
Okay, that's a big deal. Listen, we'll take a break. When we come back, we can take some phone calls as well if you have questions or comments. We'll get more into the types of services out there for veterans, and you know, just your take on what you see happening out there. Also, a lot of people wonder, you hear the stories about, well, the VA is so slow sometimes to respond. Let's face it, the VA's had some issues, and you want to get it up to speed so veterans get what they need. We'll get into all that and more on our Veterans Day show with your calls and our guest Terry right after this.